Last spring, I took a Friday night babysitting job for the Davids, a family who lived 5 streets away from my own house in Chandler, Arizona. I was 17, saving for community college fees, and the extra $20 an hour sounded great. Their neighborhood felt safe. Single-story homes, trimmed lawns, street lights every 30 yards. So, my parents agreed. I arrived at 6:30 p.m. Mrs. David showed me the alarm panel, Wi-Fi password, and emergency numbers. She tucked 4-year-old Sybil and 6-year-old Tyler into pajamas and left chicken nugget leftovers in the fridge. Mr. David reminded me that bedtime was 8:30 sharp. They drove off to a charity dinner downtown. When the front door closed, I engaged the deadbolt out of habit. The evening started quietly. We drew with crayons, watched half an episode of Paw Patrol, and brushed our teeth. At 8:25, I led the kids upstairs, read a short story about a lost puppy, and switched on their nightlight, an LED moon that glowed soft blue. They fell asleep fast. Downstairs, I texted my mom, spread biology flashcards across the kitchen island, and poured myself a glass of cold drink. At 9:15, the doorbell rang. I flinched. The Davids hadn't said anyone might visit. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his late 30s, gray hoodie, dark jeans, running shoes. He held a keyring and waved politely at the door camera. A black Honda idled at the curb. He spoke in a normal voice as if he knew I was listening. "Hey, I'm the kid's uncle, Brandon. I forgot my keys earlier. Need to grab something from the upstairs bedroom." His tone was calm, not pushy. Still, every warning alarm in my head went off. The Davids had never mentioned a brother. Through the locked door, I replied, keeping my voice steady. The parents didn't tell me anyone was coming. "That's on me," he said. "I told my sister I had the spare. Look, Sybil asked for her purple blanket earlier, right? She always wants it when she's tired. And Tyler had mac and cheese before changing into his dinosaur PJs. I know their routine." He was correct. My stomach tightened. Maybe he was family. Maybe not. I stepped away from the door and opened the baby monitor app. Both kids slept, breathing softly. I glanced at the living room security tablet. The outdoor camera showed the man shifting his weight, but not touching the handle. I called Mrs. David. No answer. I tried Mr. David, straight to voicemail. I considered dialing 911, but I hesitated. Arizona dispatched fines for false alarms. A text pinged. "Sorry, the banquet is loud. Everything okay?" It was Mrs. David. I typed fast. "Man here says he's Brandon. Your brother. Needs in." 3 dots appeared. Then her reply. "We don't have a brother. Call the police now." My hands shook. I took a slow breath and dialed 911. I gave the address, the description, and stressed that 2 children were asleep upstairs. From the hallway, I heard a soft tap. The man knocked again, still polite. "I really need that blanket. Promise I'll be 2 minutes." I didn't answer. He waited 10 seconds. Then the door camera showed him moving to the front windows, cupping his hands to see inside. I killed the interior lights so he couldn't spot me. In the dim glow of my phone, I watched him trace the siding toward the side gate. A moment later, the backyard motion sensor light flashed on, then off. The dispatcher stayed on the line. "Units are 3 minutes out. Stay indoors and keep doors locked." I crept to the patio door. The lock was still secure, the curtain drawn. No movement outside now. The house felt too quiet. Even the refrigerator hum seemed muted. 2 cruiser sirens approached, then fell silent. Red-blue lights strobed through the blinds. I stayed in the hallway until an officer called out from the porch, giving his badge number through the locked door. Only then did I open up. Officers searched the yard and nearby streets. The Honda was gone. Tire tracks angled toward the main road. Neighbors' doorbells caught nothing useful. The man had parked out of camera range. Inside, the kids slept through everything. The officers took my statement, praised my caution, and waited until Mr. and Mrs. David rushed home, faces drained of color. Mrs. David hugged me so tight I could hardly breathe. She kept repeating, "Thank you for protecting them." By 12:30 a.m., The patrol cars rolled away. The parents insisted on driving me home. I accepted, though I kept looking over my shoulder the whole ride. That night, I replayed every second. How had he known the children's dinner and bedtime? Did he watch through a window earlier? Did he overhear me talking? The Davids later found a small gap between the window frame and its lock. Maybe he had eased it open before I arrived, listening from the yard. He vanished before police came, which meant he either carried a scanner app or just had sharp instincts. Weeks passed before I took another evening job. When I did, I brought privacy film for exposed windows, replaced flimsy latches, and kept a baseball bat within reach. I stopped assuming a calm voice and personal details proved anything. Detectives who followed up later said similar men had been reported near elementary schools, collecting fragments of conversations to use as credibility. They believed he tried 3 houses that month, always claiming a family tie. Hearing that didn't comfort me. It only showed his polite approach was practiced. The case remains open and no arrests have been made so far. I still babysit, but only for relatives now, and I never ignore a gut feeling. Safety hinges on small choices. Locking a side gate, silencing a stranger, double-checking a story. I made those choices that night, and 2 children kept dreaming under a blue moon nightlight instead of waking to a stranger's footsteps. Sometimes, long after midnight, I wake up to the memory of a soft knock and that steady voice asking for a child's blanket. It sounds patient, almost friendly, waiting for someone to trust him. I hope no one ever does. Last year, when I was 25, I moved into a second-floor apartment in Tempe, Arizona. I worked night shifts at a hospital, so I often got home around 3:30 a.m. The complex was quiet at that hour, dim walkway lights, the occasional sound of sprinklers, and the distant hum of freeway traffic. My unit had a small balcony facing the parking lot. I liked to sit there for a few minutes after work, sipping water and letting my brain unwind before sleep. About 2 weeks after moving in, I noticed a man standing near the mailboxes late one night. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, a faded gray hoodie, and dark pants. I assumed he was just checking his mail, but when I went inside, something tugged at me. He hadn't actually opened the mailbox door. He'd just been leaning against the post, hands in his pockets, watching the lot. Over the next week, I saw him 3 more times, always around 3:30 or 4 a.m., always standing near the mailboxes or by the dumpster enclosure. He never carried trash bags or envelopes. He never looked at his phone. Just stood there, watching. The second time I saw him, I made eye contact. He gave a slow, deliberate smile. On the 4th sighting, I parked my car closer to the stairwell and kept my keys between my fingers. As I climbed the steps, I heard his shoes on the gravel. I didn't turn around. My heart pounded. The moment I shut my apartment door, I locked the deadbolt, slid the chain, and stood there listening. Footsteps on the walkway. Then silence. The next night, I skipped the balcony entirely. At 3:40 a.m., I peeked through the blinds. He was there again. Same hoodie, same spot. But this time, he was looking directly at my building. I backed away from the window. Sleep didn't come easy. The following evening, I got home and saw a sticky note on my door. In uneven block letters, it read, "Nice balcony." My stomach dropped. I checked the peephole. No one. I tore the note down and shoved it in a drawer. By that point, I called the non-emergency police line. They sent a patrol car to cruise the lot at night. For 2 days, nothing. Then, on the 3rd night, I came home and saw the man again, but now he was standing at the bottom of my stairwell, looking up. I froze in my car. After a few minutes, he walked toward the street and disappeared. I didn't get out until I saw the security guard's golf cart making rounds. I filed a formal report with the apartment office and the police. The property manager checked the camera feeds. The angle of the nearest camera barely caught the stairwell, just enough to show a hooded figure standing there for almost 20 minutes. He never touched my door, never tried to enter. After that, I changed my routine. I parked in a different area, came home early when I could, and skipped the balcony for good. For 2 months, I didn't see him again. Then, one morning in November, A tenant down the hall told me someone had been caught trying to pry open her sliding door at 3 a.m. The man ran when her dog barked. She didn't get a clear look, but she said he wore a baseball cap and gray hoodie. Police increased patrols, but no arrest was ever made. I renewed my lease, but my blinds stayed closed and my balcony stayed empty. Sometimes on my nights off, I catch myself glancing toward the mailboxes. Even if no one's there, I still feel watched. In the summer of 2019, I was 21 and renting a small duplex in Mesa, Arizona, with my friend Jess. The unit had a narrow driveway, a fenced backyard, and a sliding glass door that opened into the kitchen. We worked opposite shifts. She had mornings, I had evenings, so it wasn't unusual for one of us to be home alone. One Thursday night around 11:45 p.m., I got back from work, tossed my bag on the couch, and made a quick snack. Jess was already asleep. While rinsing my plate, I noticed something odd in the backyard to the sliding door. The motion sensor porch light was on, but I couldn't see any movement. The fence gate was closed, and there was no wind. I figured maybe a cat had set it off. At 2:15 a.m., I woke up to the sound of our backyard gate creaking open. My bedroom window faced a side yard, so I could hear it clearly. I froze, listening. Slow footsteps moved across the gravel. The porch light clicked on again, flooding the yard in pale yellow. I tiptoed into the hallway and peeked into the kitchen through the vertical blinds. I could just make out a man's silhouette on the patio, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a baseball cap. He stood perfectly still, facing the sliding door. My phone was in my bedroom, but I didn't want to cross back. I whispered Jess's name from the hallway. She opened her door groggily, and I motioned for her to be quiet. We crouched low, moving to the living room where the front door was. The man hadn't knocked or tried the handle. He just stood there. After a minute, Jess mouthed, "Call 911. I grabbed her phone from the coffee table and dialed. The dispatcher asked if the man was trying to get in. "No," I whispered, "but he's in our fenced yard, staring at the door." She told us to stay inside and wait for officers. A few seconds later, the porch light turned off. The backyard went dark. My stomach knotted. Then, faintly, we heard the crunch of gravel moving toward the side yard again. The gate squeaked shut. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes. The officers searched the yard and found shoe prints in the gravel, size 12, deep treads. They also noticed a plastic lawn chair pushed up against the fence near the side gate, as if someone had stood on it to look over before coming in. We filed a report, but without cameras or a clear description, there wasn't much they could do. For the next week, Jess and I kept the blinds closed and a kitchen knife within reach. We also started locking the side gate with a padlock. 3 weeks later, a neighbor told us her motion light had gone off multiple times around 2 a.m., and she thought she saw someone ducking between fences. She never got a good look. The police made extra night patrols, but the man never came back to our yard. Jess moved out that fall, and I followed a few months later. The duplex was cheap, but I never shook the image of that silhouette, standing silently on the other side of the glass, waiting for something. In early 2021, I was 27 and living alone in a third-floor apartment in Phoenix. My unit faced the street, with a small balcony that overlooked a row of covered parking spaces. I worked remotely, so I was home most of the time. One Wednesday night around 11 p.m., I was sitting on the couch watching TV when I heard a faint tapping sound. At first, I thought it was coming from my upstairs neighbor's place, maybe furniture being moved. But the tapping kept a steady rhythm about every 2 seconds. Curious, I muted the TV and followed the sound. It was coming from the sliding glass door in my bedroom. I froze. My blinds were closed, but I could see a faint shadow shifting behind them. The tapping stopped. I stayed perfectly still, my heart pounding. Then came another sound, a slow drag, like fingertips sliding across a glass. I backed out of the room and grabbed my phone. When I came back to the doorway, I could see the blinds move slightly, like someone was brushing against them from outside. I dialed 911 and whispered to the dispatcher that someone was on my balcony. She asked if I could see the person. I said no, but I knew someone was there. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. A minute later, I heard the faint creak of my balcony railing, then rapid footsteps. By the time police arrived, the balcony was empty. The officers searched the area below and found footprints in the dirt next to the covered parking, deep impressions leading to the support beam near my unit. They said it looked like someone had climbed up the metal frame to reach my balcony. That night, I barely slept. The next day, I asked the apartment manager if the cameras faced my building. They didn't. He suggested I buy a security camera for my door. I ordered one immediately and kept my blinds closed from then on. 2 weeks later, around midnight, my new camera sent an alert. When I checked the footage, my stomach dropped. A man in a dark hoodie and baseball cap was standing on my balcony, peering through the blinds. He stayed there for almost 30 seconds before turning and climbing back down the support beam. I sent the footage to police. They circulated still images to patrol officers, but no one was caught. For the rest of my lease, I kept my sliding door locked with a security bar and my camera running 24/7. I moved out that summer, but sometimes if I'm awake late at night, I still hear that soft, deliberate tapping in my head. Back in 2017, when I was 23, I worked at a small coffee shop in Chandler, Arizona. I opened most mornings, which meant I had to be there by 4:30 a.m. My commute was about 15 minutes, and at that hour, the streets were usually empty. One Tuesday in late September, I left my apartment at 4:10 a.m. It was still dark, the air cool for once. As I pulled out of my complex, I noticed a white sedan parked across the street with its headlights off. I didn't think much of it until I saw it pull out and fall in behind me. At first, I figured it was just another early commuter, but every turn I took, the sedan stayed with me. Left, right again, it matched me exactly. The driver kept a steady distance, far enough that I couldn't see their face. When I got to the main road, I slowed slightly, hoping they'd pass. They didn't. My stomach tightened. I turned into a gas station, planning to loop around and get back on the road. The sedan pulled in too, stopping at the far end of the lot without going to a pump. I parked under the brightest light and pretended to check my phone. The sedan just sat there. After about 30 seconds, I decided to call my manager and say I'd be late. As soon as I lifted my phone, the sedan slowly rolled out of the lot and drove away. Shaken, I stayed parked for another 10 minutes before heading to work. I didn't see the car again that day. But 2 mornings later, at the same intersection near my apartment, the white sedan appeared in my rear-view mirror. Same make, same dents on the rear bumper. This time, I didn't head straight to work. I drove toward a 24-hour grocery store about 5 minutes away. The sedan followed, turning into the same lot. I parked near the entrance, walked quickly inside, and told the night manager that I thought someone was following me. He walked me back out, but the sedan was gone. I filed a report with the police, giving them the partial plate number I'd caught. They told me they'd keep an eye out. But I never heard back. I changed my route to work and started leaving later, even if it meant rushing my opening tasks. For months, every time I saw a white sedan in my mirror, my chest tightened. I never saw that exact car again, but the feeling of being watched on a dark road still creeps up on me, especially in the early morning hours.